We got Amjad Masad in the building. Welcome to the show.
There he is.
Yo,
Crazy
up,
intro.
How you doing?
What's going on? How are you?
uh, Good. I just dunked my head in a bowl of ice. You guys
Oh, we got the
amazing.
interested?
Saratoga
Let's
here too.
go.
I hope you use Saratoga, man.
I hope you got your banana on there too,
Yeah,
because
my
that's a
banana
critical
is,
part
is
of this
coming.
step.
The banana's
Yeah.
key. You can't start your morning without a banana on your
No,
face.
no, just some
Some nice
banana all
Saratoga.
over.
Are you still
Um,
lifting like crazy? Last time I saw you, you were deadlifting like 500 pounds or something like that.
I lost a lot of weight. It's
Oh,
just like you get to a point where it's unhealthy. It's not exercise. It's
yep.
fucking killing you. It's
It
like,
Yeah,
gets it gets a little risky. The risk of injury gets up there, but you got to be able to break a sweat every once in a while.
you see growing Daniel's tweet is like, if
Mm.
you want to look like shit and feel like shit, start powerlifting.
Yeah, because you just if I want to get the number to go up, I better bulk more, and then I just
yeah.
put eating so much.
Yeah,
Oh, it's
exactly. I
rough.
still maintain some of the muscle, but just trying to work out for longevity and health. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway,
Good
thanks for
approach.
joining. Can you give us just like a brief overview of like where Replit is, what you're working on, how's it going?
Yeah, so Replit, kind of like the genesis of it, has always been how do you make it so that, programming is more accessible to more people. It's
Yep.
had a profound effect on my life, like coming from Jordan, growing up there, lower middle class family, being able to come to the US, come to New York initially, and then move to the Bay Area and be able to build a $1 billion company. That's outrageous, and it shouldn't be possible. But the reality is that we have this massive wealth engine machine that's called the internet, and for a long time, it hasn't really been possible for a lot of people to kind of take part in that. There's I think Peter Thiel said, like, the paradox of the internet. It was supposed to sort of decentralize wealth, yet somehow concentrated it into Silicon Valley.
Mhm.
But I think what we're seeing now is finally the tools of creation are becoming more accessible, and that's really been my mission. And so initially, Replit was about, let's get people learning how to code, and um, I think that was a good pursuit. But people don't want to code. The reality is, I spent
That's
the last
hilarious.
whatever working at Code Academy and Replit. I mean, it's good. I think we taught a lot of people how to code, and at Replit, we built a ton of infrastructure around how do you set up a virtual machine, the runtime, install packages, automating all of that, and all the way to deployment. But really, the big unlock was the agent, putting an agent on top of all of that. We were the first agent in the market to be able to configure services, databases, deployment, and go all the way to deploying an app, and it kind of transformed our business just in the past 7 months.
Can you talk a little bit about the benefit of knowing how to code and how that collides with vibe coding? I see a lot of people that are like, "Oh, I vibe coded and it didn't really work," and then Andre Karpathy's like, I vibe coded it and it worked great." And I'm like, there's probably a little bit of a difference between when Andre Karpathy is vibe coding and when someone who's completely non-technical is vibe coding. Like, is there still value to learning to code in 2025?
I think there is, but I mean it depends, John, about what is your prediction about where AI is headed, right? Like,
Mhm.
if in the up case, like what Dario just said recently, all code will be AI generated. I assume this optimization path we're on, where agents are going to get better and better and better. The answer would be different. The answer would be no. It would be a waste of time to learn how to code. But like, you could have different predictions, and I think different people will make different assumptions. I'm at this point, like, sort of agent pilled. The progress we're seeing with agent, we just are rolling out V2 agent. I've never seen a sort of like an A/B test as we're rolling out. I've never seen metrics in my entire life. I worked at Facebook, other places. We're moving metrics like crazy just by improving the agent,
Hmm.
like 100%, 500% on certain metrics on success that users are having. And so I think where vibe coding goes wrong is when a beginner is using Cursor some other platform, great product, but they don't give them guardrails. Like,
Mm,
there's the guy that lost 6 months of work on Reddit. There's the guy on Twitter that leaked his API keys. Like
mm,
on Replit, we do get commit for you. You don't have to worry about that. We hide the API keys in like a secure vault. And so I think a lot of it goes to like, hey, these beginners should not be using a lot of these tools, and instead they should come to places like Replit. But that being said, I'm very bullish. Like, I sort of changed my answer. Even like a year ago, I would
yeah,
say kind of learn a bit of coding. I would say learn how to think, learn how to break
mm.
down problems, learn how to uh, communicate clearly, uh, with as you would with humans, but also with machines.
Can you tell me some stories about like success stories from Replit? Maybe like the what's possible as a solo dev today. I mean, we're seeing Peter Levels IO do crazy stuff, but what are you seeing from the most successful Replit users?
Let me start with the business cases because I think those are
Yeah.
kind of really profound because we've always had like micro entrepreneurs like make money and
Mm.
it's certainly accelerated massively, but 100+ year old company, Sears. I don't know about you. I didn't know
Sears.
they continued to exist, but they have this spin-off called Sears Home Services. About a year ago, they hired a team to like a more trendy sort of tech team to get them off of Cobalt, which is whatever 100-year-old programming
Yeah.
language. And they were able to do it very quickly. And then after they've done that, basically most companies as they're modernizing, they go adopt a bunch of SaaS tools and no-code tools and low-code tools and to become like
Hmm.
a modern company. They actually skipped all of that and went to AI. And their operations team, which manages the kind of field workers that go out and every day kind of do house repairs and all of that, they started building AI tools. So one AI tool that they have is like the worker would go and would talk to the AI and it would optimize their route, and would that
Hmm.
made it so that they're making a lot more money. And now that team, everyone on that team started building AI tools, and so you have this ops team that's highly levered that are able to move business metrics, and they leapfrogged an entire era of computing and landed on AI agents, and now these are the generalists that are building the business. And I think this is a view into the future where firms would not be made of like SDR and like can't EAE whatever. It's going to be like I'm a sales generalist, right? I can do all that stuff because I can spin up AI agents that can do all these things.
That makes sense. How do you think about balancing the sort of needs and demands of the different types of people and customers of your platform? Right, you have somebody that comes on, they're sort of early in their sort of like entrepreneurial journey. They build something, but then suddenly there's this moment where they become a business, and once you become a business, and you're sort of like servicing, so like you have the challenge of having so many people on your platform, and some of them can end up wanting different things. Just what does it look like in terms of you want to be able to continue to service these users over time while still making sure that Replit is the best place for somebody to sort of like start their journey.
We've taken a difficult approach, and perhaps not the smartest, right? The reason I've been working on it for my entire life is because uh, what I try to do is like um, build an end-to-end experience where we infuse a lot of taste and decisions and choices on behalf of customers. You had that in the past where like the Apple ecosystem kind of makes a lot of decisions for developers, and even Windows, as much of as we look down on it, but Visual Basic was a great product. It made a ton of decisions for you, and like a lot more people were making things at the time. And so then you had the open source movement, and the open source was this radical, disruptive, bottoms up thing where there's 100 competing libraries and 100 competing ways of doing things, and that created a lot of mess. and create a lot of power. But now getting started and doing things with programming became a lot more difficult. Like imagine setting up a modern web, uh, app, let alone trying to set up like a Python environment. Like
Mhm.
if you mess up your Python environment, the best thing you could do is throw your laptop in the garbage and get a new one.
I've been there. It's miserable. It's terrible.
So, so you had this, bottoms up innovation and kind of like the early hacker lingo, you had the cathedral versus the bazaar. So the Windows ecosystem is the cathedral, the open source ecosystem is the bazaar. And so in my mind, well, let's build cathedrals made of bazaars. Like I think open source is awesome, but let's actually build tasteful experiences on top of that. So my work at Facebook, I was part of the early React team. I was working on the tooling there, and especially like React Native, we made it so that in 5 minutes you can spin up a Hello World app.
Mhm.
As if you're trying to do it using Apple and iOS, that would take you, hours perhaps. So, now fast forward to Replit, and we built basically all the way from nuts and bolts to the UX of what it means to make software. And so that's been a lot harder, but I think you end up with this general purpose horizontal tool that can satisfy uh, a lot of needs. The challenge, of course, is like positioning and marketing this thing. And you guys know, as entrepreneurs, like people like to pick one product on the market. But look back on the history of computing. Typically, the best products that end up being a core part of our lives are the general purpose horizontal products.
Hmm. There's kind of a narrative that's floating out there right now that companies that are aligned with the AI growth trend are seeing extremely fast rates of adoption. You're seeing companies get to 100 million ARR faster than ever before. The risk that people are kind of worried about is that maybe churn rates are going up as customers test a new AI tool and then kind of bounce around. They're using Cursor one week and then Claude Code the next week, and then they're bouncing to this one. What are you seeing, and what do you think's happening? And do you think there's any merit to that fear in the market or on X right now that maybe the AI revenues that we're seeing are not as sticky as previous SaaS installation cycles?
It is certainly suspicious.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, anyone who tells you differently is sort of, and I was a little worried about our growth. Like, is it is it going to go away?
Yeah.
What is going on? Like, this is like a little too fast. Um, and I think we really start focusing on the metrics that really matter, which is the revenue quality, retention, things that more advanced companies are thinking about, like net dollar retention. We actually have above 100% net dollar retention, even
Mm-hmm.
for our consumer plan,
Mm-hmm.
which is probably unheard of. But uh, I think that I think maybe ARR is becoming a bit of a vanity metric, like how fast you can grow the ARR. I think you want to make sure you're providing an awesome service and also make sure that people just want to stay on your platform. I think, especially on the VS Code Wars, the switching cost being so low is is going to be a challenge for them. You can go from Copilot to Windsurf to Cursor in like 5 minutes, same
Yeah.
project.
Yeah.
Quite like it's one click, you can open the project. And so they're going to have to find a way to differentiate. The great thing about Replit, we provide this really great convenience. And so if it ain't broke, don't fix it. You deploy something on Replit, and people really tend to stay.
That makes sense. Internally, I'm sure the entire team is using Replit all day long. Is there still a place for traditional prototypes, or is everyone across the team sort of like doing rapid prototyping of features, which is obviously something that your end customers use, or is there still like, hey, let's just make this in Figma and kind of align around it first?
There's certainly a place for Figma. I think there are uh, First of all, there are things that are tough to prototype, and there are things that you want to do very, very quickly, even faster than sort of any kind of software prototype. And it depends on how people think. Like I think designers still would wanna would want a canvas to think. And I
Yeah.
think some of these products might end up growing in that direction, where maybe you go to Replit and you initially have some kind of canvas, and that kind of results in a piece of in an application. But right now, I still think there's a place for Figma. But the way I think about what Replit is doing to our organization, I hope more and more companies, is like everyone is highly levered. Like we just built, agents are new, and part of the exciting things is that no one knows how to build agents.
Yep.
There's no tracing tool, like an APM, like a New Relic or Datadog for agents. So we built our own internally, and a couple people on our team spent like a week using Replit and vibe coding, this really a great infrastructure tool that has saved many, many hours of engineering. We have even more exciting story. We have someone in HR that couldn't find an org chart tool that really fit what she wanted to do, or it was too expensive. She spent 3 days. She spun up this org chart tool with like connection to ADP and sort of versioning history, and it's amazing. She never coded, right? So I think the way to think about it is like um, how to increase the productivity in your company, and less about like, oh, what should we displace? I think these tools still have their place.
Yeah. How do you think about sort of buying software as someone that enables the creation of software when, you've obviously been building Replit for a very long time. 10 years from now, you guys are in market for a new CRM. You're talking to the big players. Is building it yourself just become a part of that sort of like RFP process where the team is like, okay, well, we can build this. Like, this is, what we think it's gonna cost to, basically build it, maintain
I
it,
mean, it used
or
to be
we
the
can go.
biggest bear signal if a startup was
Was like,
building their own CRM. It was like, oh no, you're way over your skis. This is going to go
yeah,
terribly wrong, and you're going to be maintaining this thing for years. And you actually don't have you're not a special snowflake in this case. Just use Salesforce or something. But
It
yeah,
has a
does that
name for it,
change?
like NIH, not invented here syndrome.
Yep,
yeah,
totally.
So yeah, I agree. So I think I thought quite a bit of this, like the future of SaaS. I think that the question is like, if you can conjure up a SaaS product, like is there even a future there? And we do see this every time I wake up on Twitter. I see someone using Replit and replacing a piece of software that costs them 15,000, 100,000. I just retweeted one this morning. Um, and so there's a lot of, I think, vertical niche specific SaaS tools that are generatable very easily, even with today's technology, let alone like a year from now. I think you'll be able to kind of generate them, especially on a platform like Replit, which gives you all the cloud services involved. I think there are ecosystem SaaS products that are fairly hard. So I think about Rippling,
Hmm.
how embedded into your company as like the what do they call it? The like system of record.
Yeah.
yeah,
And Salesforce, think about the ecosystem and the developers that they
yeah,
have.
Yep.
So I think if you're starting a SaaS business today, you want to go against the Silicon Valley dogma of focus. You want to
Hmm.
build a Chinese style company,
Hmm.
which is I think what Rippling is doing. And I think I think this idea of like being generative and having larger pieces of software, I think is going to become more important in the future. So I think I'd be really worried about vertical specific SaaS, but I think I would bet on those horizontal SaaS companies.
yeah.
Well, we got to ask about the Vercel drama. We talked to Guillermo earlier this show. What's going on there? What's your take? Can you break it down for us?
Well, I someone asked me, do you plan on supporting Next.js and Replit agent? I said no because we want to bet on something like Vite that is
Hmm.
open, like community built. And the way Next.js has been trending is that is optimized for Vercel.
Hmm.
They disagree, but it is actually not a controversial statement in the larger community. There's a project called OpenNext that makes it so that, Next.js is deployable on more platform. Matt, the CEO of Netlify, commented, agreeing with me.
Hmm.
The larger community feels like, Next.js is perhaps more tied to Vercel than they would like to admit. And I think they overreacted to my comments, and they Streisand my comments. I think it would have been less of a story if they didn't overreact to it. And look, Vercel is an amazing product. It's an amazing brand. They've done a great job managing a lot of open source projects, not just Next.js. And for me, water under bridge, like I think emotions get high on
Yeah.
Twitter, and you start name calling, and I wish them really the best.
Yeah, how is Next different than the React relationship with Facebook? I mean, with all these big main core frameworks, you're kind of, if you're in Angular, you're aligned with Google. If you're with React, you're aligned with Facebook. But has Facebook or Meta done a better job of kind of releasing that into the community?
Well, they're not trying to monetize it as aggressively.
Well, not at all. Not monetized.
Yeah.
Look, I exclusively worked on open source
Hmm.
at Meta, and the advantage and disadvantage of working in open source at Meta is that there's no direct tie-in to the bottom line, right?
That makes
So
sense.
we were not trying to monetize
Yeah,
React. Um, so far, they haven't monetized Llama in terms of like selling an API.
sure.
And so generally, as long as they are um, uh, sort of they're using it internally, they're going to maintain it and support it and get some value out of the community and mindshare support. Now, the disadvantage of that, we actually weren't ever able to like make a complete product, because like if you go to Google and use now Flutter, I think that thing is actually much more polished of an experience because they have a direct incentive to advance the Android ecosystem, for example. And so Facebook, we built really cool pieces of infrastructure, but the UX around them were bad. So you have companies like Expo building on React Native to make it a better experience, companies like Vercel
Hmm.
building on React to make it a better experience. And these are amazing companies. And I think that's how it should be. I think where it gets tricky is when you end up also maintaining the core software and really tying them together.
What do you think about kind of the Ben Thompson aggregation theory around there might be a new company to emerge from the AI boom that is the hub for these vibe coded apps and websites and games? Obviously, it for a long time it's felt like web development services, if you could call it that, were very much, it was bifurcated. Like there was Shopify, which is a Power Law winner, but then there was also Squarespace and Weebly and like dozens of other companies that did quite well. But if there's a new aggregator emerging, and Nikita Beer's written about this, like maybe there will be one company to really break out and be the hub for vibe coded N64 level games, that would be very valuable. It would also be more of a winner take all environment. How do you think that that plays out in your category?
Look, I don't really, that's not the model for
Mm-hmm.
our business. Like the way I think about it, in the early computing era, you had the mainframe. It was the domain of the expert. And then you had the PC, and it became possible for anyone to use computers. And that ended up eating our economy essentially because that's how disruptive technology work. And so in the modern era, the modern software engineering is also the domain of the expert, and now it's become so that anyone can make software. Initially, it looks like a toy, vibe coding, games, and things like that. But I think it will fundamentally change and transform the economy. And my model for what we're building, it's let's build an Excel.
Mm-hmm.
It should be fun. We do a lot of things that make it fun. We actually build a 3D gaming stack, but the model is like, can a billion people use it to as part of their everyday work, to build businesses, to really be a core piece of the infrastructure in the economy. And the idea that it's going to be Roblox. I don't see that as interesting. I mean, Roblox is a great company.
Hmm.
I think, maybe Roblox is the aggregator for vibe coded games, but I think it's really not the big prize. It's like you want to build $1 trillion company, you got to think a little bigger than that.
I love it.
Yeah. Do you have any words for your doubters? Something you said is like the next big thing looks like a toy. It's been this idea within Silicon Valley that you can apply to. You could have applied it to crypto. This was Chris Dixon's, I think, original thesis. It still feels like Replit is this billion-dollar company now, but I still think your doubters and your haters would say,
No, it's just a toy.
"Oh, it's just a toy.
Yeah.
Like it's kids making apps or whatever." But do you like that people still kind of underestimate this potential? Is that part of what creates this sort of the opportunity for the next 10 years? Is people not realizing like the tsunami that's kind of about to hit the industry?
Yeah, I think it used to bother me, but now I think it's actually an
An
advantage, and
advantage.
I think you know when when we're at the height of like AI trendiness, and Replit obviously was early. We were the first outside of Copilot to train a code model.
Yeah.
We're like this company in the city, and we're growing fast, and hired a bunch of executives that I think are part of the sort of the hype kind of Silicon Valley. They jump from one company to another. And last year, I did the founder mode. I
Love it.
cut the team in half,
Wow.
now like 65 people. I moved us out of the city. We're now in Foster City. Literally, there's no other startup. There's actually nothing out there. It's sort of a desert. And so we have this nice sort of kind of office that we're turning into a campus. We have food. We have all of that. And the team here is sort of a tight knit team. There's a selection effect on who joins Replit.
Mm.
If you are smart enough to figure out that Replit has this amazing potential in the future, then we would want you on the team. If you really think it's a toy, it's not worth your time, then great. And so I think these things that just sort themselves out.
Awesome. Well,
Well
thanks for
said.
joining. Loved
Uh,
having you. We'll have to have you back soon.
Yeah, I'm incredibly excited to watch what you guys do
Yeah.
for the next year, the next 2, the next 5, the next 10. Yeah, I would love to have you on again in the future sometime soon.
Yeah, this is
This is
fantastic.
awesome. Thank you for doing the show. It's been really cool.
Thanks
All
so
right.
much for
You're the
joining.
man. Cheers.